This is the Television Enthusiast Podcast, The Weekly Set.
Episode 7, recorded March 12th, 2015.
Welcome to the Weekly Set, the Television Enthusiast Podcast. I am your host, Tyson. Joining me today are Will.
Hello.
Kat.
Hi.
And Lee.
Hi.
Okay, today we're going to be going over some news, and then we're going to be talking about some shows we've been watching. So let's start off with the news here. First off, I have a bit of a rant I want to get through. At Apple's recent Spring Forward event, which most people thought was just going to be kind of their more details on their watch, which I guess they didn't give too much details on anyways, but they revealed that the HBO Now service, which is HBO's streaming-only service, would be exclusive to Apple for 3 months, and it's going to be launching alongside Game of Thrones, which pretty much makes it exclusive through the entire run of Game of Thrones to Apple devices.
Doesn't that kind of undermine the whole purpose of it?
Yeah, so I've got stuff to rant on this. So here's where I'm going to start. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with exclusive content, but I do have an issue with what I call unethical exclusivities. And this is what I think this is, in my opinion, and that's that this was a service that was going to exist no matter what.
Yeah, I have a huge problem with it, because it's like, when you're starting a new service, don't you want adoption to happen as fast as possible?
Yeah.
I mean, don't you want, like, as many users as you can possibly get? Why limit your potential user base right off the bat like that?
Especially since they're launching it alongside the new season of Game of Thrones, and the exclusivity goes through the season. Now, if they were going to launch it 3 months before Game of Thrones started, and give 3 months of exclusivity, and then it would go wide right in time for Game of Thrones, I could understand, like, that kind of a move, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Well, and isn't the point of the whole service, or one of the purposes of the service, is to fight Game of Thrones piracy specifically because Game of Thrones is far and away the most pirated show on the web, and so this just means that Game of Thrones will probably continue to be pirated at a really high rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's unavoidable. That's going to be happening, yeah. But I think what really pisses me off about this is it's just, there's nothing that's brought to the table by this being an exclusive to Apple. Everybody already knows about this service. It's already hotly in demand. It was already going to come out, so it's not as if Apple funding somehow made it happen.
Right.
So there is no benefit to the consumers to this happening, not even to the Apple consumers.
Apple just believes that they can use it to help them sell Apple TVs, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and they lowered the prices on their Apple TVs to, I think, $79.99 with no software or hardware update. They're just kind of pushing out their old hardware.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's really unethical because all it's doing is Apple's basically paying not for any benefit to their users, but to the exclusion of benefits to others.
Yeah.
And that's what pisses me off about it. Because, you know, I mean, there have been issues with exclusives before that have got people riled up on the internet. You know, I'm a Nintendo fan, so I remember when the Bayonetta 2 exclusive thing was announced. But in that case, that was a game that Sega had already decided they weren't going to put out. And then Platinum went to both Microsoft and Sony, and both of them said, no, we won't fund it. And so that game wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Nintendo making it an exclusive.
It's the same with Rise
so
of the Tomb Raider. Like, Microsoft is, from my understanding, actually investing to some degree in Rise of the Tomb Raider, so it makes sense for that game to be exclusive to the Xbox One.
Exactly.
Right. Exclusive video games are one thing, but, like, this is a streaming service. I mean, these things live and die off of their subscriber base. And it's not like a video game where you can make it exclusive to a system and sell a couple million copies, and then you're done with it. Streaming service, that is an ongoing concern.
Yeah.
The faster you can get a big user base, the better. From my understanding, 3 months exclusivity to Apple can actually kill this, because in 3 months...
Game of Thrones will be over.
Yeah, Game of Thrones will be over.
And that's their biggest draw show that they have on their entire network.
And then they're going to be launching to more devices, and they're going to be trying to get more subscribers, and people aren't going to be as interested in 3 months.
Yeah.
No offense to the rest of HBO, but is there anything really that, aside from Game of Thrones, that people are going to want from HBO Go, at least in large numbers?
No,
yeah, there's
I don't think
True
so.
Detective, I imagine, got a lot of buzz in its first season. It crashed the HBO Go servers when the True Detective finale aired. So
Oh, that's right. Okay. I
that
could
got
see that
numbers
one
as
being.
well.
Sure.
The thing about True Detective, though, is like it's going to be like the new season. It's going to be a completely different story. So it's unknown whether it's going to continue to be as successful. So it resets itself. Whereas Game of Thrones has an ongoing story and everybody's dying to know what happens to these characters next.
Yeah, everybody knows Game of Thrones is going to be huge. There's no
Yeah.
there's no doubt. It's not like a guessing game there.
Right, yeah, exactly. So it baffles me why they would want to launch their streaming service exclusively on Apple when their biggest show launches.
There are benefits I could see to HBO, just because they're taking a big risk by doing a streaming service of creating kind of disputes with the big cable companies that they've been aligned with for years.
Oh, sure.
Because this is like a cable cutting option. So I've heard people say it's a possible way of kind of mitigating that because it's going to go through the run of Game of Thrones, which is like the biggest threat. Because people subscribe to HBO just for the time that Game of Thrones is on and then cancel their subscription. So that's something that happens every year. You'll hear people talk about how I got to renew my HBO subscription because Game of Thrones is starting up.
Silly me keeping my subscription all year.
I keep mine all year too. It's just...
Yeah.
I could totally see that being a factoring issue, but again, this is something that has no benefit to consumers at all. None. Not even to Apple consumers, because Apple consumers would have had it just along with everybody else. I guess the one benefit you could see is the reduced numbers of people accessing it will make the streams have less lag.
True.
I mean, I guess
maybe less crashes.
But that's hardly anything you want to brag about. That's hardly...
I'm not affected by this. I have an iPhone. I have an iPad. I can get it. I'm signing up as soon as it becomes available.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel bad for people who want it who don't have an Apple device, and that's a lot of people.
See, I don't have an Apple device, but I'm keeping my HBO cable subscription, so I'm not affected by it in that sense, and I'd be keeping it even if it was available wide. So,
really?
So I'm not affected either at this point.
I'm planning to use this as an excuse to cut my cable subscription.
Oh, you're cutting the cord?
Yep, HBO I think was the last thing holding me back, actually, because I needed my Game of Thrones fix.
There's too much for me that I'd miss if I cut the cord right now, so I'm sticking with the cord, but at least for now. But yeah, it's just, so this doesn't really have a direct effect on me either. I also, full disclosure, I'm not an Apple fan. I don't like the kind of corporate philosophy of the company, but that doesn't even weigh into the fact that this is kind of a bullshit move.
Right.
So, yeah, I just kind of wanted to get that off my chest as a little bit of a rant. It was nothing too extreme, but I just felt it was very unethical.
It was a very unexpected, very controversial move that I knew was going to draw a lot of criticism and a lot of controversy as soon as it was announced.
Yeah.
Apple has always been about, like, we know you want it, so we'll force you and choke all the money out of you. Like, that's how Apple operates. Like, we have something that you want, and this is the price you're going to pay, and we're going to dictate the terms. That's how they run. They were that way with everything, basically.
Yeah, they're all about, we know what you want, and, don't tell us what you want, we'll give you what you want kind of attitude. That's one of the things I hate about the company is that, I mean, if I was to show you my phone's completely decked out, everything looks custom and different from any other phone you'll see. I'm all about that. I'm all about creating kind of my own custom space around me. So the whole idea of like, we'll tell you what you want thing never flies with me.
Yeah.
The one benefit of that Apple announcement with HBO was that they showed a new trailer for Game of Thrones.
Just to torment people.
I thought it was a really good trailer.
I actually didn't watch this trailer.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No.
So it's a much more eventful trailer than the last trailer was.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, you see a lot more of the dragons too. So it's has a really cool shot of a dragon at the end.
Can't get enough of the dragons. They always throw in cool shots of dragons in like every trailer.
That's the money shot, right? In all the
that's
trailers?
the money shot. Yeah,
That was in the last trailer. Was that one shot of the dragon rising up in front of the guy?
that's why the dragons are in the show, so they can have shots for the trailers.
Yeah. They showed a lot more. It opened with a speech from Daenerys Targaryen saying basically she was referring to all of the houses as spokes on a wheel that's constantly turning with different people taking turns on top, crushing all of the people beneath. And it was kind of an interesting way of looking at it because they're also approaching that idea of like the trappings of wealth and how it crushes the classes below.
Right.
Is like a general theme of this next season. They're having like the religious sect of Westeros is going to coming to power based on the teachings of the High Sparrow of the church, who is a pious man who believes in, he's very much like like the new pope, you know, like he's very much like go down with the people kind of person, like wealth is evil kind of idea that he has. So of course he's instantly going to be at odds with like the Lannisters and other people flaunting wealth and in King's Landing while others are suffering in poverty. And so that's going to be like a big theme of this whole season, is this idea of the people being crushed beneath this spinning wheel with these houses atop and them cool. Fighting back. So I thought it was a really good trailer. I hope you get a chance to watch it. Maybe we can talk about it next week.
I'll certainly watch it. Definitely. If not tonight, then tomorrow. But
yeah, there was another trailer that came out this last week as well, which is the new trailer for Daredevil. Did any of you watch that?
During,
that one I did watch.
So you hadn't seen the first one yet, had you?
No. Was this similar to that one?
No, it's a little. I think this one was better.
This one was the best trailer that they've done for the show.
Yeah, particularly because it kind of focused on Fisk in the beginning. Got Vincent D'Onofrio. That's a great focus point. Yeah,
there was a heavier emphasis on Wilson Fisk and also on Daredevil. We actually got to see some of Daredevil's origins in this trailer.
Yeah,
which was kind of cool. We got to see like his trainer, and that was really cool. But yeah, it was a lot of the trailer was like the relationship between Daredevil and Wilson Fisk.
Mm-hmm.
There were some shots in there. There was a shot of Fisk on the phone talking to Daredevil, saying he admires his conviction.
Yeah,
and
I think D'Onofrio's portrayal of Fisk is going to be probably the highest point of this new series.
I think so.
D'Onofrio is a great actor, and it seems like they're really going for more of a gray area character for his portrayal of Fisk. He's not like this evil guy. He has kind of like noble intentions, very similar to Daredevil's own intentions. But it's just their means of pursuing it.
I think what they're going for with this is they're going for shades of gray. I think they're going for the kind of idea that Daredevil isn't 100% this good guy, and Fisk isn't like 100% this evil guy. They're both in this gray area, and I think that's going to be like a big theme of the show.
So, Kat, this was your first time seeing a trailer for the show. We had talked before about how Will and I both enjoyed the tone and how it just seemed much darker than the typical Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff. What did you think?
I think I do appreciate that it looks way darker tonally than anything the MCU has produced, and I think that's fantastic. And the way you describe it sounds super interesting. I think for me, just the biggest thing is I know next to nothing about this character except that Ben Affleck once played him, and that's fine. I went into Arrow blind and actually loved not knowing anything about the Green Arrow mythology because it kind of freed me up to just enjoy everything without worrying about adaptation and stuff. So I'm sure I'll watch it, but that's more based on my interest in the MCU rather than due to any trailer.
Yeah.
Same. I mean, actually, I've never read a Daredevil comic. I was never a big fan of the character. I know, like, the basics of the character. I know how he got his powers, basically, you know, his major villain is, and other things, and, you know, the stuff I learned from watching the Ben Affleck movie. Other than that, I've never been a big fan of the character. I never followed the character that much. My interest in the show stems from my general interest in the MCU and following everything involving that. So when I actually saw the trailers, I actually genuinely excited for this show in a way that I'm not excited, usually for other things. And that's not just because I was like a big fan of Daredevil. It's just because this legitimately blew me away.
Oh, that's great.
I think I'm more excited about it just in general because of the people involved, We've talked to Stephen S. D. Knight, showrunner.
Yes.
Worked on Spartacus. Awesome. And again, I've talked a bunch already when talking about this trailer. Vincent D'Onofrio as Fisk. Amazing actor,
Sure.
Gives great performances. Very intimidating screen presence. I'm really looking forward to what he brings to this kind of role. So, yeah, I'm excited about it.
I have to admit, I think at this point, I'm more interested in Jessica Jones. Like, I'm sure I'll at least try Daredevil. I think I'm more interested in Jessica Jones because I'm looking forward to another female protagonist. And also, I love David Tennant. And so, like...
I also think she has a more interesting story in general.
And I'm sure Vincent D'Onofrio is a great actor.
That.
I've barely seen him in anything, and so I don't really have much of a connection to him. Whereas I really like David Tennant, so I'm really looking forward to seeing him in the MCU. So, like, Daredevil, I'm sure it'll be great fun, Agent Carter surprised me, so maybe Daredevil will surprise me, but there's other stuff coming up in the MCU that I'm looking forward to more.
Well, with Jessica Jones, also, one of the things that's a benefit towards that is that, it seems like there's more direct ties to the other Marvel series, because Luke Cage is going to be a character in that, and he's one of the ones that has his own series later. So that's going to have it. And in the comics, Luke Cage has a connection to Captain America, which will give kind of a larger tie into the cinematic universe than this was. Speaking of which, this is the first time we've seen with the Daredevil stuff, we saw like an actual reference to other MCU stuff. Because they made a reference to Thor and Iron Man.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they had that line at the end where this villain guy, apparently talking to his goons who just got beat up by Daredevil, he says something like, "I could understand if he had an iron suit or a magic hammer while you got your asses handed to you." And that was like the line.
It's such a small thing, but it kind of, in a sense, it seems so disconnected from the rest of the MCU that like it almost felt like a separate thing to me. So seeing that connection just kind of excites me, even if it's such a small little reference, because it just reminds me that it is all connected and part of this world, and that there might be some ramifications and connections. I hope they're light. I hope that it focuses more on the street level side, which is what they're trying to do.
Even in the comic books, Daredevil rarely interacts with the rest of the Marvel heroes. He usually mostly interacts with like Luke Cage, Iron Fist, or the Punisher, or Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He had a lot of team-ups with Spider-Man, but none of like the big heroes that we see really have any interactions with Daredevil normally.
Yeah, I'm hoping it stays like that, but I do appreciate the little ties.
I think it's good to have it as a balance, because I felt like Agent Carter was refreshing specifically because it felt so removed from the major continuity of the MCU that's going on right now with like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all the Phase 2 movies and stuff. But then it managed to insert ties that were really interesting but also really subtle.
Oh sure, with Jarvis and with
the Black Widow stuff. So I think there can be good stuff to have it exist more separately, just because I've had a lot of concern in the last year that the MCU is starting to look very similar with a lot of its products. So I'm very happy to see it doing things that look more original.
Yeah, definitely. Watching the trailer for Daredevil, it almost looks like a completely different product from the rest of the MCU.
I like the references being used specifically because they feel like these events were so big, like seeing Thor and seeing Iron Man were such huge monumental events that they've become these kind of pop cultural status things, similar to like how if somebody's smart, we go, oh, you're a regular Einstein.
Right,
It's
exactly.
like, you could imagine somebody saying like, oh, you're a regular Stark or something.
Right.
And I like that. I like that it ties in kind of, it seems like that's how it's going to tie in to the MCU,
Right.
is just in that very light way.
I guess I wanted that reassurance that it was in the same world, even though I knew it was.
Same here.
It's so different from the rest of it that I kind of needed that reassurance that it was still connected.
Even though I appreciate it being different, yeah, exactly. I feel the same way. I want it to be different, but I also want it to have that kind of connection. So I was really happy to see that.
Yeah, I can see that.
So let's move on. Let's talk about some shows we've been watching. Now, everyone except Kat here has watched Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Now, you said you got to episode 7, Will?
I got up to episode 7, yep.
Where did you get to, Lee?
I haven't finished the series.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, I finished the series as well. So...
That was like my goal.
You tried.
I tried.
So I checked your review because I'm the one that proofed it there. But what did you think of the series in general? How can you sum it up, Lee?
I think it's a great series. It's your typical expectation of sort of a TV show from Tina Fey. It's got sort of all the classic characters that she had on like 30 Rock.
Oh, yeah.
It was just pretty much like everything that you would expect. I didn't really have... There's not that many surprises.
Yeah, that's true.
So is this a spin-off of 30 Rock?
No,
No.
It's just because it's from Tina Fey, it has so many similar things. So I don't know if it's not that there's characters from 30 Rock in it, but a lot of the actors that played small roles in 30 Rock are also playing small roles in Kimmy Schmidt.
For a second there, I thought maybe some of the characters actually appeared on 30 Rock.
No, not characters.
Oh,
just,
actually,
yeah.
I have something to add to that. They paused the screen when I think Titus's video went viral. He went crazy on the news, and they looked on the side videos, and it's supposed to be that it is the same universe.
Oh, it
like
is.
That. Yeah. I didn't read the article specifically, but it was trying to argue that they're conjoining universes or something like that.
Oh, it's the interconnected Tina Fey universe.
Yeah.
Got the Marvel one. We talked about the Office universe last week in the podcast. Now we got the Tina Fey universe.
Mm-hmm.
I figured they would do that. It's so easy, but yeah. I'm in love with this show.
Yeah, it's very much like 30 Rock. It feels, almost identical to 30 Rock. It has that feeling like when you watch like a new episode of 30 Rock or, new for you, I guess, because it's already done. You get that, it hits the same exact beats,
Mm-hmm.
It's just, the pacing is the same, the kind of the style of the acting is the same, the kind of humor, the quickness, everything, it's exactly like a direct continuation of 30 Rock. Except you have these different characters and a different kind of backstory or scenario going on.
You're making me really interested to try it. Like, I'm already planning on trying it eventually anyway, just because I think it looks like really charming. Because I'll admit, I watched 4 seasons of 30 Rock and never loved it. I thought it was fine, but I never got into it. And so I wonder if I'll, manage to enjoy this series more, just because for some reason I feel like already I can tell I will like the tone of it more than I ever did 30 Rock.
Yeah.
I sent you the link for the review if you wanted to read it. It's basically, they took 30 Rock, they made it more like Mean Girls with the backstory of Annie. Like, it was just like a remix of the same show almost.
Yeah, I definitely see that. It's a more interesting premise. I like the whole meta stuff that was kind of in 30 Rock, the kind of show about making a show stuff, but it's just a much more interesting premise coming from the idea of you have this survivor of this cult and trying to kind of hide her identity and stuff, and having that to go along with the kind of wackiness that 30 Rock had. It just works, in my opinion,
And Ellie Kemper just looks so perfect in the role. And I've liked Tina Fey in other things, but I never really connected with her as Liz Lemon.
She has an appearance in the show, but it's brief. It's pretty funny. It's a short appearance towards the end of the season.
I've never actually watched an episode of 30 Rock, so This is like my first like real exposure to this type of comedy.
So yeah, if you watch 30 Rock, you're gonna get basically the same beats. It's got that same pacing, the same kind of feel to it. So it's very similar. I'm still kind of waiting to see if Jack McBrayer is gonna show up at some point.
Ellie Kemper
They're gonna show up as Kenneth or
is
something.
totally adorable in this show. Like seriously.
Yeah.
It's like
I love her
she's
monologues where she's like just raging on positivity and optimism. I'm like, yes, we need more like positivity in TV
I
shows.
love her attitude. I love her enthusiasm.
I love the whole bit they had with the construction worker that was like whistling at her. What do they call it? Wolf whistling at her?
Catcalling.
Yeah, catcalling at her, and she was like, he was like, I'd love to be your dress, or something. He's like, I'd love to be your shoes, or something. They're a great color. And then the guy, like, it sends the guy into this existential crisis about how he's treating women and stuff. It's hilarious. And they cut back to it too, like I think that like a couple episodes later, they show that guy again, and he's still kind of undergoing like a crisis based on what happened. It's really funny.
I love her like cover-ups to like her attempts to like cover up that she doesn't know anything. Like she'll be like, I totally knew that, and then she'll turn around like away from the characters and be like, oh my god, I didn't know anything. Like just freaking out and holding it in. I love that.
Yeah.
The secrecy.
And you mentioned in your review her like childish comebacks.
Yeah, she's all these like, cause she hasn't been in the world since she was like 13 or 14, so all her comebacks to anything are like from the 6th grade. So like, yeah, she just like mocks people with like the silliest things.
Oh yeah. It's great.
And it shuts people up.
It does.
It shuts them up because it's so like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, right, exactly. People can't believe what's coming out of her mouth. Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great show. Yeah. And like I said, you're gonna see a lot of actors that were made appearances on 30 Rock that kind of pop up, and other ones too. I was like smiling ear to ear, and I laughed out loud when I saw that Dean Norris popped up on the show from Breaking Bad.
Oh my god, Dean Norris. I haven't gotten that far yet.
Yeah. Oh, you haven't? Oh, okay. He'll pop up.
My favorite
I won't say
episode was
then.
like the last episode I just watched, which was the one where she was like in that GED class with that teacher who just doesn't want to do anything.
Yeah.
He wants to get into this teacher's lounge where you can sit around all day and do nothing.
That's a real thing, by the way.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Seriously?
Coming from a family of teachers, I can tell you that is a real thing.
Oh my god.
Oh.
Where teachers basically that are so shit that they have to get rid of them, but they can't get around their tenure or like their the entrenched like systems they have in place to protect their jobs. They can't get rid of them, so they send them to these rooms where they just sit and do nothing. It's like detention for teachers, and they get paid for it.
They get paid for it. It's the dream.
And most teachers hate it. They hate it because, you know, it's like it's boring and there's nothing to do. And they also kind of referenced something similar in Silicon Valley and a different thing. It was like at a tech company instead, where they had like this, you know, people that were kind of acquired as like revenge moves against other companies, and they're on contract, but they have no use for them, so they just kind of have them like hanging around at like on the roof of some building or something. So they've had something similar with that, but yeah, they really do have those, especially in New York. In New York, it's really well known for that their district has like a school or a building specifically for that. So
right.
That's upsetting.
Yeah, it is upsetting.
Oh yeah,
when you
the
think about
education
it.
system is very upsetting. I could go on for ages about that, but I won't because this is TV enthusiast and not education enthusiast.
The episode has a point. I mean, it's satirizing the poor state of the education system in New York, you know, and it's using the show as a vehicle to talk about that.
But it's doing it in a really light, like non-preachy way, which is something I really appreciate. Right. You know, I remember before I watched 30 Rock, I was really avoiding the show just because I knew Tina Fey was such a strong feminist and stuff, and because I just do not like being preached to, like messages being preached at me. I watch like Newsroom, but I always have trouble watching it because it gets really preachy and stuff, and that's what I thought 30 Rock was going to be like, and then I watched it and I'm like, oh, it's not. It's just doing it in like a silly way. It's presenting its point, but it's just doing it in a silly, light way. It allows you to kind of reach your own conclusions and stuff, and I like that, you know? It makes a good point, but it doesn't shove it down your throat in like a really, you should do things exactly this way, preachy way
Right.
that I don't like. So
That was my thing. That's why I avoided 30 Rock, because I honestly thought Tina Fey was going to be like the type to just preach at you like
Oh,
for
it
30
isn't.
minutes.
It isn't.
And yeah.
yeah,
I'm
I thought
so
it
glad
was
that's
going to
not
be
the
that
case.
too, and it wasn't the case, and I really liked 30 Rock, and I like Kimmy Schmidt even more, I think. So
Yeah, that's a really good point about Tina Fey, actually. Because you bring up the newsroom, and it's something I've never been able to watch, even though I'm a fan of Aaron Sorkin's earlier works. And it's like the guy just spiraled down to this point where he developed this massive persecution complex. And like West Wing would occasionally veer into preachiness, but it also had like incredible drama that usually balanced it out. But somewhere along the line, Aaron Sorkin lost his mind. So that's a really good point about Tina Fey, and it actually makes me think of, I saw more than one comparison made online between the Parks and Rec finale with the Two and a Half Men finale, with people saying the Two and a Half Men finale was like really, really vindictive, and Chuck Lorre taking out all of his frustrations on Charlie Sheen, whereas the Parks and Rec finale, which was co-written by Amy Poehler, was just full of love and affection for the show and its characters and its fans. So I feel like that's something Tina Fey and Amy Poehler have in common.
yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Tina Fey impressed me with 30 Rock because I had heard that there were all sorts of issues behind the scenes with her and Alec Baldwin and other stuff going on, and some of the egos kind of involved behind the scenes on that show. Yet everybody involved on the show really loved doing it.
Yeah.
They just had their egos would get in the way and stuff.
Oh, we
And
know
so-
what kind of like temper Alec
Yeah,
Baldwin
yeah.
has, and it's like so he can't be easy to work
But when
with.
30 Rock ended, there were some monologues and stuff throughout the kind of final season that were really kind. Like you could tell that they were directly addressing Alec Baldwin, or like as Alec Baldwin. Like it might be something, she might be talking about Tracy Jordan or something, but it would be about Alec Baldwin, you know? But it would be done in such like a kind-hearted, friendly kind of way that I really was impressed by it. Like how she handled that she was able to keep it so positive, despite not running away from the issues that were there. Like some shows would just not address it at all.
Yeah.
Some shows would overvent on it, and she was able to kind of address it without being mean-spirited. So that's a good point. I want to talk a little bit more about Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, because I think besides Ellie Kemper as Kimmy, there were some other really just hilarious roles. I think
Titus.
Oh yeah, he's hilarious, but I really wanted to point out Jane Krakowski, who was in 30 Rock as Jacqueline, is hilarious.
She's amazing.
That's Kimmy's boss, Will.
Yep.
Just, I mean, even in like the first scene, and it's in the trailer, when she offers like Kimmy a water, and Kimmy's like, oh no thanks, and she throws it in the trash.
She just tosses it in the
And
trash.
that actress is just amazing at doing things like that and selling it so well, of just the idea of like just being completely unconcerned with anybody else but her, you know?
I like the fact that she has like this background. She came from like a poor Native American family.
That's
I had a hard
hilarious.
time buying that. I'm like, really? Like, I've seen you blonde my whole life. I can't. I was like laughing but kind of cringing. Like, you can't. I don't know if you can do that.
But that was
know.
hilarious,
It's
but that's what made it so funny.
Yeah, that's part of the joke.
So without spoiling it for Will, because I'll just make the quick reference to Lee, but what did you think of the Buffalo joke?
Where? When they're driving?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was awesome.
Because they had referenced it earlier with like a flashback, and then they
I like how she like lost it and became like all Teen Wolf at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's cool. It's
Oh
cool
my
to
God.
watch like the comedy of like people of Tina Fey writing about people who have no competence doing these really professional jobs that actually require high competence, and about the comedy of like rich people and how their lives are just horrible, like just awful, and it's like it's very Tina Fey, it's very Manhattan, it's very New York, it's very believable, and it's very funny because it's real.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like a real cartoon.
Yeah,
basically.
she's like a living cartoon, exactly. And I love how she says like, oh, the dog never went to the bathroom, and then Jane's all like, yeah, we bred that out.
we bred that out. The poop hole's there for
Yeah.
looks.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what's cool about that is that lines like that are all callbacks to things that happened earlier, because Titus had talked about, like, oh, these rich white people and their overbreeding of dogs, you know?
Yeah.
He had directly referenced that before it happened. And so that happens a lot in the show, where some of the best jokes are actually callbacks to something else that happened
Something
earlier.
will be brought up, and then, like, later on there'll be a callback to that for a joke.
Yeah.
There's also, like, just random stuff, too, that, like, just gets you bursting out laughing. Like the episode when Titus was trying to return his costume to get his deposit back. And, like, he's trying to get his deposit back, and he's arguing with the owner. And he tells him his dream. He says, I want $200 so I can get a headshot and, make it on Broadway or something. And then the owner just says, that's the saddest thing I ever heard, and I have sex with these costumes. And I was just like, oh my god. That's, like, so random. It's like, they get you like that.
Yeah.
And
The
it hits on multiple levels.
when Jane's actually drinking the water, because everybody's been saying it's Fiji water, and I actually looked into that, and it's not Fiji water. She's not, like, there's a friggin' fridge, like a clear panel glass fridge full of Fiji water. It's not Fiji water. It's either diet water on one of the rows, or it's just a made up water that the show did. Like, they didn't get a company to sponsor them, and I kind of wish they did. Yeah, so she's, like, holding this, like, bottle of diet water. Like, yeah.
diet water.
There's some cool little geek references throughout the show, because Tina Fey is pretty geeky, she put a bunch of Star Wars references in 30 Rock, and, I'm pretty sure that Jane's character, Jacqueline's, her last name is a direct callback to, or not callback, but a direct reference to Friday the 13th, because her last name is Voorhees.
Well, one reference I really liked was, like, the bratty daughter there, the stepdaughter, who's, like, just this horrible brat. Her middle name is Lannister.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, oh man, that's awesome.
So yeah, there's all sorts of little kind of geeky references throughout it like that, so that's good. So let's move on from that though. So I'm going to talk about Powers. Now, I think I'm the only one here that watched it. I didn't hear from you though, Lee. Did you watch Powers?
No,
you said you didn't.
It's
That's
not
right.
available in Canada.
It's probably available, but it's probably
I gotta download it.
Region locked how it's available, like you have to watch it this way instead of, like, you have to get it through Canada's YouTube channel versus
I have to get a proxy.
Darn you, Sony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's worse just because I'm here.
I'll get onto that. I'll get onto that whole thing with Canada, with region locks and that kind of stuff. I have something to talk about later about that, but about something I'm trying to do on the site. But let's go on with. I'm going to talk a little bit about Powers. Now, Powers kind of surprised me because it was tonally kind of very different than what I expected. I was kind of unsure watching it through the whole time if I liked it or hated it. It has this kind of tone where it feels like it's really tacky and cheesy. The characters are wearing these kind of real, like mid 1980s superhero style costumes, that look really, but that's kind of the point, like that everything's kind of homemade and kind of has that tacky thing. So there's like a point to it, like it's supposed to be. And in a sense, I ended up being a little impressed because it seemed like it was kind of approaching that in an unapologetic way. Like, these characters, they make their own costumes and yeah, they're tacky and stuff, but they're not going to apologize for it. They're just making what they think looks cool. And it might not serve utility and stuff, but does that matter? The person has superheroes and they want to look cool and they give themselves some weird name and they have some whacked out looking costume, and it's all just because of their own egos and stuff. There's no like Batman-esque like leather outfits and body armors and stuff. It's not like that at all. It's all like leotards and spandex and But there's something that I like about that. Like I said, it's unapologetic, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of. Have any of you seen Misfits? It was a show in the UK.
Nope.
I've seen it on Netflix.
Yeah, I think it's on Hulu, but it's okay. Misfits is like a superhero show with like teen angst and stuff, but it's really funny. But it can be hard to kind of understand tonally. Like when you start watching it, you're like, this is really bad. And then you'll watch something else, you're like, this is really good. And then you're watching it more and you're like, I don't know if this is good or bad. And then you kind of realize that's the point, is that it's trying to kind of be like that. It's trying to kind of like walk this tightrope tonally of being kind of cheesy in some ways, but not, but it's not doing it in the way you would normally see in an American show, where it's trying to kind of balance it like Gotham does, like how Gotham fails in its tone. Where it's trying to balance between the gritty and the heightened. It's like, that's what Powers is like. It's like it's saying, we're just gonna go heightened, and we're losing all that gritty edge and stuff, but who gives a shit? And they're just going for it. And at times it comes across really weird, and sometimes with the music, and sometimes it comes down to like some of the special effects look pretty cheesy and stuff, but they're just going for it. They're not trying to make everything look too cool. They're trying to make it look like if you see a superhero go flying by, it doesn't show it from some dramatic angle and then the camera shakes as they go by with the wind turbulence and there's some crazy sound. It's like, no, it's just like the guy just goes flying by, And in a way that looks kind of cheesy because we're kind of expecting this over, dramatized version of that. And it's not there. And there's, like I said, there's something unapologetic about that I enjoy. So yeah, it's got a decent cast so far. I'd say the highlight of it is Eddie Izzard's character as Wolf. Now, Will, you'd probably most recently know him from Hannibal.
Yeah, Eddie Izzard is a delight in like anything that he is in.
Oh yeah,
he's such a great character actor.
And he's a lot like his character in Hannibal in this.
Really?
Actually, I think it might be better than his character in Hannibal in that he's a little bit more kind of knowing, like closer to Hannibal than to his character in Hannibal. But like kind of messed up. He's like constantly getting, I don't want to spoil it or say much more, but yeah, he's a really cool character. And
so he plays like the villain in the show.
Kind of. Like, I've only seen the first episode, and the way it seems to be hinting at is that he's kind of, like, naturally a villain, but, like, he's not necessarily doing it out of some grand evil intent, but more like it's just, like, his nature.
Huh.
And, yeah, so that makes him a little bit more interesting, I think. And, yeah, he's not really involved in kind of the main plots that are going on in the series, at least from what I've seen so far. But he's, this kind of dangerous possible threat, because his nature is he's called Wolf, and it's like he's a wolf, It's
maybe something they're building up for, like, throughout the season, then.
Yeah. He's not like the villain that's plotting stuff. He's like the villain that's like, that doesn't really care about everything else that everyone's doing. And he's just a threat just because he's a threat.
Right.
Well, that sounds interesting.
So it's pretty good. I'd be interested in hearing what you guys think of it when you get a chance to watch it. Like I said, the tone's gonna be the weird thing.
Are there more than one episode?
I think there's just one. There's only one that's available for free. The rest you have to have a PSN Plus.
Yeah.
That's right.
I don't know if they're doing like what Netflix is doing and putting them all up for PSN Plus subscribers.
I actually tried to look that up and I couldn't find any information, but I'm already hearing some people talking about episode 3, but I'm not sure if it's just because they're TV critics and they have access to early copies, or if it's because it's available,
Right.
I just don't know.
I'll have to look on my PlayStation and see if I can't pull it up and see if I have access to all the episodes.
Yeah. So it's something I'll watch it later. I have a friend with that. I'll probably just go to his house and watch it at some point. I'll marathon it with him or something, unless he just doesn't like it. I don't know. But
right.
So yeah, that's about what I have to say about Powers. It's going to be interesting to see how people react to the tone, because it reminds me a lot of Misfits. Although Misfits is a lot funnier. If you see it and you can get past the tone, I'd recommend Misfits.
The way you describe the tone actually, I think, kind of pinpoints what makes me most worry about it. Because actually, on one hand, when you're talking about how they wear like the spandex and the leotard, there is a teeny tiny part of my soul that loves X-Men and is kind of sad that the movies don't have them wearing their outfits closer to what they wear in the comic. But at the same time, I can also see how that could potentially bring a camp factor that might make it really hard to take seriously.
Oh, and it does. It does bring that camp factor that makes it hard to take seriously. That's why I'm interested in seeing what other people think of the show, and how they react to that tonally and the things like the costumes and stuff, like if they have a negative reaction to it or if it's mostly positive. I think in a way it's really realistic. It's kind of like how you'd imagine, I mean, if superpowers really did exist, and we live in this world that celebrates comic books and stuff, people aren't necessarily going to be making these like Kevlar armored bodysuit kind of things. They're going to be wearing like bright colors and stuff. And,
kind of like
yeah, I was gonna say.
Kind of, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
But there's actually like real people that do that go around and like dress up as superheroes and do like neighborhood watch type stuff.
Yeah,
and their costumes look silly and stupid like that too. So it's like if this was something that was real, I mean, that's what it would look like. It's like you have a person with a teleportation power. When they disappear, it's not going to be like woof or something. It's going to sound like a little like popping sound, like a poop. And that's like how it is on the show. And it's kind of silly, but at the same time, it's like more realistic.
Yeah, I can see the appeal.
I definitely, I want to see more, but like I was through the whole time I was watching it, it really kind of gave that vibe of like watching a web series. Just that kind of like low budgetness.
Oh,
of
yeah.
it, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like watching a web series that has like name actors in it. It's like, this is a web series, but wait a minute, but that's Charlotte Copley from District 9, and
that's right.
That's Eddie Izzard, and that's, you know, Noah Taylor from Game of Thrones.
They might have thrown like more money at the actors than they did the production.
That's quite possible.
There's some cool ideas at play, though. I really like it, and it does, in a way, it's kind of true to the comic because the comic book is an indie comic. It's not like one of the mainstream comics, and it has that kind of feel. And so there's a kind of indie comic vibe to it as well, which is kind of cool.
Right.
That's something that I had a problem with Kimmy Schmidt. Like, I actually wanted to see really good acting, and I want to see American comedies have strong acting, sort of like what Sherlock has, like that amazing, like captivating acting. But I feel like the actors were just portraying personas, like their personalities, and they always play the same personas. So that was kind of...
Oh, they're playing caricatures, yeah.
I think Ellie Kemper is doing a fantastic job.
But she plays that character, and that, like, it's very believable because, like, you almost believe that she is that way in real life. Like, it's not believable.
It seems very similar to the character she played on The Office. Like, I see what you're saying. As great as she looks in the role, it does seem like that's kind of the type that she played.
Yeah, like, I feel like they're just playing types, and I get it. They're supposed to be characters. Ugh. But I do see comedies coming out with really good acting, really good production. Like, that's what I'm, like, sort of more into. Like, I feel like we've seen 30 Rock so many times. We've seen that, like, typecasting so many times, especially with like TV shows.
Yeah, I get you. I mean, I read your article. I thought it interesting that you classify Sherlock as a comedy, when to me it's more like a drama.
It's crime drama, but it's so funny. Like the chemistry between Sherlock, the psychoticness of like the craziness.
Yeah. Sherlock himself is hilarious.
So funny. Yeah.
It's firmly in the dramedy character.
Dramedy.
I mean, I love it because Sherlock Holmes is such a unique, he's such a unique character. He's so funny.
And they make fun of themselves. Like, they make fun of the way that he kills himself or the way that he jokes about his death. And I love that. But it's serious and it's good acting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think you might like, if you're looking for something kind of different, a comedy, have you ever watched Louis?
Oh, man, I need to. Yeah. I love Louis C.K. No, I haven't. But I've read about it so many times.
Louis is so vastly different from what you'd expect from a comedy. I mean, it can be downright depressing at times.
I've heard, yeah.
And so I mean, if you're just looking for that kind of thing that's different, I highly recommend that.
I'm looking for good acting. Like, I'm tired of these caricatures. I want to see some real, like, hard hitting acting.
Yeah, I hear you.
Right. I hear. Yeah, I get you.
So another show that I think I'm alone in having seen here that I'll just go over very quickly is The Last Man on Earth, and I won't go over it too much because I'd kind of actually like to talk about it with you guys if you get a chance to see like an episode or something. When we first talked about this show, we were talking about how it's not going to be interesting if they can't bring in some other characters at some point. And they are starting to do that. And I won't say how they do it or what way they do it or something, but there are already kind of characters coming into play and stuff. And it kind of completely changes the tone of the show, like mid-episode or at the end of the first episode, there were like 2 episodes back to back or something. So it's like the second episode really takes a very different different tone than the first one. The first one is almost kind of sad, and it's like this guy and he's just alone, and he's like, it's actually funny that he's watching like Castaway, and he's ridiculing Tom Hanks for drawing on a volleyball and making that his friend and stuff. And then, like, you see him, like, months later, and he's got, like, a whole bunch of balls all around, and they all have faces on. And so, like, they're kind of, like, playing with things like that, you know, like, those kind of ideas. And it's kind of, in a sense, it has that feel of, like, from the clip we had in the spring preview, it has that feeling of that kind of fantasy element of, like, there's something kind of cool about if you were the last person on Earth. I mean, before all the loneliness sets in, there's that cool aspect of, you know, you could run through the streets naked without any shame, and, you know, you could smash windows, or, you know, take a car and just go driving recklessly without any concerns. There's that
the realization that you could just do anything you wanted.
Yeah.
You were, like, totally free from any constraints whatsoever.
Yeah, so that's a big part of, like, the first episode of the show.
Right.
And you see, like, you know, I mean, in his house he has, like, pieces of artwork and stuff that he's taken from museums, and just kind of, just like, but his place is like a hovel. It's, like, just loaded with trash, and he'll just have, like a Picasso sitting on the floor with, like, garbage all around it or something.
I'm surprised he didn't just, like, break into a mansion and, like, make that his home.
He does.
Oh, okay.
So,
It sounds like a lot of wish fulfillment.
Exactly, but that's like the first episode, you know? And then there's like a tonal shift, and it kind of becomes something else. And I won't, like I said, I don't want to get too spoilery on kind of what's happening and what's going on with it. But it's kind of developing in an interesting way, and there was just another shift where I think that it's going to take another shift now, just on something that happened at the very end of the last episode, is adding a whole different dynamic. So
wow.
It's interesting to see how this is going to develop, like, over the course of a season or something. And I think by the time the season's over, I can't imagine the second season's gonna develop in the same way. It's gonna more have found its footing. But it's finding its footing now, and it's kind of doing all sorts of different things, and it feels kind of natural in that way. Like, it's introducing this element, and then it's introducing that element, and you're kind of getting everything's kind of starting to come together. And I think by the end of the season, you're going to have kind of a picture of what the series would look like if it continues on for more seasons. But right now, It's not really set what the series is. Like, it's still kind of changing and adjusting.
Right.
I just tried to watch the episodes on Fox.com, but I can't because I'm in Canada, so...
Oh, God. You need a VPN.
Is it available on Hulu? Do you get Hulu?
No, I don't... Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I could try. I'll get a proxy server,
Yeah. That seems to be how people in Canada seem to watch most of their stuff online. Yep. You hear about it all the time.
Yep.
I guess, like, Netflix is improving in Canada now, but before then they were saying, I think it was, like, 60% of the, Canadian IPs connecting to Netflix were, like, routing through a VPN.
Yeah.
So they could get access to the American content. Yeah. So, yeah. We've talked about this before. We really need to take that step to a global market and just kind of forget all these borders and
boundaries. It's so annoying. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, these restrictions are late.
Especially for, like, a service that you're paying for. Like, you're paying for... If you pay for Netflix, you should get Netflix. Like, if you pay for a chocolate bar, you should get that same chocolate bar everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you understand with advertising because some products aren't available in all places, you know?
Yeah.
But if you're paying something, you're just directly paying.
Yeah.
And you should just have access no matter where you are. I mean, of course, there's going to be limitations with laws, you know? There's going to be certain kinds of content that you can't watch in Saudi Arabia, you know? Mm-hmm. Because, like, oh, this show's a gay character and we can't allow that or something. So there's going to be limitations, legal limitations like that. But other than that, there shouldn't be.
It seems like there's all kinds of, like, these lame rights limitations. Like, Netflix has the rights to stream this in the US, but they don't have the rights to stream it in, like, England or whatever.
Well, it's because we're transitioning out of an old system. We had this we had this very complicated, entrenched system of the way things were done, and we're moving into this global market now, and everything's changing. Mm-hmm. And the people that are really strong into the entrenched system are going to fight it tooth and nail, because it's going to hurt them, you know, until they can find a new way to do it. This is like the point where you're going to see lots of, you know, we already are kind of seeing it. You're seeing lots of new companies becoming being massive very quickly. And at the same time, you're seeing other companies collapse.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Sony's collapsing right now. They're in deep trouble. They're suffering. And that's not something you would have thought would be possible 10 years ago.
Nope.
No, definitely not.
And I mean, like, look at some of the clothing retailers around. There's some that are just gone now. Like Mervyn's just gone, you know? And that's been around, you know, my entire life. I knew what Mervyn's was and stuff, and now it's gone.
Sears is on its way out.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, they're doing horrible. They own Kmart. They just closed a bunch of Kmarts.
But then look at companies like Google started in, 1994 or 1997?
Yeah.
Netflix started in 1997. Those companies are multi-billion-dollar, huge international entities.
Apple's the biggest company on the planet right now.
Apple's been around at least in the 70s, though. So
yeah, they've been around for the 70s. Yeah, but they in the last I'd
they're
say
the biggest
like the
company
last
of
10
all time
years
right now.
I'd say in the last 10 years they really blew up.
Yeah,
So,
with the iPhone was the
definitely.
big iPod, and then the iPhone was the big turning point. But Apple is now the largest company in history.
Right.
So,
which is insane.
yeah, and I believe that's adjusted for inflation too. So that means they beat out like Ma Bell and stuff, you know, which is pretty crazy.
That is.
Yeah, that's we're gonna see more and more of that though, and you know we're seeing it now with the whole cord cutting revolution. Companies like Comcast and Time Warner are struggling desperately as they try to find like other kinds of revenue streams to sustain themselves. And we get frustrated because we're like, geez, why aren't these services just available? Why did it take this long for HBO to become streaming? And it's because of these companies that can't let go of their leash because they know that they're fucked if they sorry for the language.
And I just saw this today, but taking HBO's lead, Showtime is gonna have a streaming app independent of cable.
Well, everybody knew once HBO did it, it was gonna be like dominoes falling.
Right.
And that's what's happening. I mean, even before HBO did it, what was the company that did it? There's like a company now that has a digital TV service where you can order it kind of like cable, but it's over the internet. And
are you talking about like the Sling TV?
That's it, right, yeah.
Okay.
And so you can get like, you know, ESPN and stuff like that now all through that.
Oh yeah, they just announced that for like $20. They just added like AMC and the Independent Movie Channel to that lineup.
So that was a big move, but HBO was like even though HBO isn't as many channels and probably doesn't even get as many views as ESPN, they're like the symbolic figure, you know, that they're the one everybody was looking towards. Like, when is this one gonna topple into streaming? And once they do that, then everyone's going to go, okay, we'll do this too.
Yeah.
The last remnants are going to wait until they see how successful things go. That's going to be like the last people jumping on the bandwagon are going to go like, okay, I'm going to wait like a month to see like how the service does. And if it does well, then I'm instantly going to call out and go, we're doing this now.
Eventually, we're going to get all of our television through the internet. The only saving grace for the cable companies is that they also control the internet tubes, you know?
Yeah, they control the infrastructure.
So you still have to get your internet from the cable company to watch these streaming services.
That might be changing too, though, because Google's putting balloons into the stratosphere that can give 4G to everyone.
Wow.
Wow.
So there's, and that's going to be free. So that's kind of, they're worried about that too. But it's going to be interesting times ahead because we're going to see companies topple and we're going to see startups explode out of nowhere.
Right.
And it's going to be kind of scary and people are going to be like, oh my God, you know, all these retail jobs just got lost because of the internet. But at the same time, countless internet jobs are going to be created. So we're going to see like career shifts where people that are in kind of entrenched positions and stuff are going to be having to learn new skill sets.
That's going to be like the biggest thing opponents harp on is like this loss of jobs. But it's not really a loss of jobs. It's a transitioning of jobs.
Yeah.
Into new jobs.
Yeah, it's just like when we went into the Industrial Revolution and stuff. You'd have these factory lines that made it much more efficient to build products, but it like reduced jobs for products. But then for every job you reduced for a product, you had somebody, you know, hired on to work the maintenance line and make sure everything worked correctly. And you had all these other positions that create to fill in for these new obstacles that come up. So that's kind of where we are. And hopefully at the end of it, we're going to be at a position where, like, you know, for right now, Netflix doesn't they don't have like House of Cards, for example, in every region. Like in some regions that's owned by other companies and stuff for distribution, but they're starting to change that now. And like, so now like Netflix is announcing, I was looking at their upcoming release schedule, and almost everything, there's a few like outliers, but almost everything is scheduled at worldwide times and releases. So like something comes out, it's coming out at the same time everywhere worldwide.
Well, Game of Thrones is going to have a worldwide release now.
Except in the UK, I guess. It's going to...
Oh, okay. UK gets the shaft.
I think it's getting it fairly around the same time, but it's not in the exact time.
It's not going to be simulcast, but that's the goal with the new season of Game of Thrones, I guess, is to simulcast it like everywhere.
Yeah, and we started seeing the move in that direction. You know, Whovians started seeing that move when Doctor Who all of a sudden went from like, oh, we have to wait 6 months for the season that we've been hearing about on the internet to come, and now we just get it the same day.
Yeah, wasn't that another instance where I think piracy was forcing their hand, where BBC America or whomever, or I guess that would be for the US, but whomever broadcast it worldwide was like, everybody's pirating, so we might as well just do our best to move it up. Also, I think it, like, based on the worldwide tour that Doctor Who did at the start of 8th season, they are really playing up having this be a global phenomenon, not just a UK thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's, you know, that's what we have now. We're in a global business, so that's where everything's going to be moving, and that's good.
And that's why HBO is doing what they're doing with Game of Thrones, because its piracy numbers were huge.
Yeah.
And HBO wants to find ways to mitigate that, and one of those ways is to simulcast it like everywhere. And so that's what's really behind this move.
I really like, besides the deal with Apple, I really like the way HBO's been approaching this whole issue with the piracy, because when people were like giving out their HBO Go login accounts to other people and stuff, HBO would go public and say, we don't care. We have no concerns that people are doing that. That doesn't bother us. They say what we care about is that people know they think HBO and they think great content. Sure. And that's what they want. They want that mind share. They want to sell their product as like a reputation. And so I like that the way that they approach that, and the way they're fighting it isn't with a bunch of like takedown requests and lawsuits and stuff, but they're just straight up offering a more convenient solution or something. Well, kind of. Not with the Apple deal, but yeah, in general. So let's go on. I want to talk about some of the recent site updates, and then we can talk briefly about what's coming up next week, and then wrap out the show there.
Okay.
But I recently updated the site. I don't know if you guys have all seen it. We have a new logo and a new background.
Looks snazzy.
I think it looks a little bit better.
Yes.
Fits a little bit more. And just last night I was going through and updating our Google Calendar. We have a link at the top bar where you can see where the Schedule US and all that stuff is. There's a calendar link, and if you click on that, there's an embedded Google Calendar that shows TV events that are coming up. And some of them are like premiere dates, but some of them are also anniversaries. So I went through and went all the way through 2017 with like 10-year, 25-year, and 50-year anniversaries for the shows. And got those up online, and as well as any of the premiere dates I could get up and that are, you know, known yet. And things like the Emmy Awards, and I put all that kind of stuff up there, and hopefully I'll be able to update that a little bit faster and get it going. I was trying to, unsuccessfully, I said I was going to bring this up, to try to set up a Canadian, UK, and Australian listings for, like, when shows are premiering on, you know, because some of them they'll premiere a different night of the week or on a different channel.
Right.
That turned out to be kind of a nightmare. I actually used a proxy, a Canadian proxy, to try to, so my searches would come back with Canadian results. Still wasn't coming up with anything. I'd still click on something and it was showing me results for America. Geez. I don't know how you guys in Canada know when shows are starting.
I don't have cable, so I don't know either. I mean, I could look in the paper or the TV guide.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys know that outside of that.
You can go to the Canadian networks, like CTV is a Canadian network, CBC is a Canadian network. So you would have to go to those sites and actually like go to their times.
Yeah.
I can help you with that.
And then I was trying to do that. I did that through like a proxy, and I was doing that, and I was like, this is ridiculous, because it's like, you think like, oh yeah, there's like hundreds of channels. I don't know if all the important ones are at the beginning or if they're spaced out, because I mean, over here, channel 2 is CBS and channel 4 is NBC, but then, HBO's like channel 800 and something,
Right.
So it's like, you have to like look at how things are spaced out. So I'm like, oh man, this is tricky. And I'd go and I'd look on Wikipedia for individual shows, and it only shows the US broadcast. Sometimes the UK if it's a show from the UK, and that's about it, So yeah, I'm hoping to kind of work that out. Right now I have kind of dummy pages set up that they're not visible right now for Canada, Australia, and the UK. And eventually I hope to have those up so that no matter where you are, you can see when your content's coming.
Nice.
That's kind of a goal I have, but I'm having trouble. So if anybody has any solutions for that, you can email us. I also want to wrap up, next week, we have 2 shows starting up, both on Tuesday, March 17. These are 2 of the ones that we've been talking about that we're excited about. One is the series premiere of iZombie.
Yeah.
That looks so good, yeah.
Yeah, it looks fun.
That looks great.
This is from Rob Thomas, the creator of Veronica Mars. Has a very similar vibe. And in fact, any criticism I've heard about the show is that it's too similar to Veronica Mars, which to me is like,
yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, that works. Veronica Mars is a zombie.
Eventually. Because I love Veronica Mars, but I don't want to rehash of Veronica Mars.
Veronica Mars as a zombie sounds like a great show.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, I'm really excited to see it. So I'm really super excited about that.
I posted it up. I don't know if anybody watched it. CW put up like the opening credit sequence for the show.
Mm-hmm. I saw it. It was like, amazing.
With all the comic book art, yeah.
Yeah, really cool. I thought.
Was it a comic book before?
It was.
Yes.
Okay.
It's actually based on a comic book by Mike Allred, who was best known for his indie comic series Madman. He wrote iZombie for DC Comics Vertigo imprint as his own independent series under that label. And basically, it's mostly, from what I understand from like reading comments on the internet, it's like basically like a supernatural, I don't know, dramedy about this girl. But also there's other monsters in the comic too, like there's vampires and there's werewolves. And from my understanding, Rob Thomas has come out and said that the other monsters aren't going to be in the series because he said, like, True Blood was kind of already doing that, and he didn't want to be True Blood.
Yeah, I think we've kind of overdone the whole
vampire and werewolf.
Yeah. So, and I read there's a little bit of disappointment from some of the fans of the comics about that, but it still looks like a really fun show. I mean,
he could still come around. I mean, if the trend starts dying out, if the show goes for a couple of seasons and the trend
he
starts
could bring
dying
those
off,
elements into the show.
Yeah, or he could find other things to bring in that are kind of less common and stuff. Yeah, I'm excited about that show. I'm really looking forward to it. Huge fan of Rob Thomas. Huge fan of Veronica Mars, so I'm really looking forward to that. Everything I've seen from it looks good so far. On the same night, Community Season 6.
Woohoo!
6 seasons in a movie, we got to the 6 seasons
This might be
now.
time for me to jump in.
Oh yeah.
I think I'm going to jump on the Community train with this.
As a lover of television, I think you will love Community. It is like the most geeky.
You haven't seen
Community
yet?
It is made for people who love and obsess over television and get the most obscure references and just love meta like crazy. It is. I think
what I love about the show is it's not just the discussions. Like, they don't just talk about something geeky. They take something that's geeky and then it like implements it into this weird way.
Oh yeah.
We're like
You haven't seen Community?
I haven't. It wasn't something I'd gotten around to.
Why? It's so good.
I know it's something It's something I've been meaning to watch. I mean, I love Joel McHale.
He's awesome.
I've watched like every episode of The Soup with him on that. But it's just I hadn't gotten around to watching it for one reason or another.
It's like if Futurama went to college. They all sucked at college and then did other weird things
stuff
instead, like they would normally do.
That's actually the perfect description.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sold.
Okay, so your homework for next week, Will. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Agents of
And
S.H.I.E.L.D.
you
and
need to binge
Community.
watch all 5 seasons of Community before next week.
Yes,
Yes.
please, yes.
Not just before next week, before next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Or just, right? Now you're caught up for season 6.
Here's what I really want from 6th season of Community. I really want Abed to talk about his experiences on the set of Captain America the Winter Soldier.
It'd be great.
Because I didn't even know about this until I read an article online about it, that after the episode where Abed talks about his experiences on Cougar Town, then they actually had an episode where Abed appeared in the background of Cougar Town, freaked out, and ran off screen. So if they're going to do that, then they need to have Abed talk about the Winter Soldier.
Right?
Yeah, oh, that would be great.
It's awesome.
I'd love to see that happen, and I think they're probably going to find some ways to kind of poke fun at Yahoo and digital services in the same way that they poked fun at NBC. Let's remember their constant references to the Cape.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
How Abed was obsessed with the
my
Cape,
God.
that show on NBC.
The show that just flopped on NBC.
Yeah, it was so funny. He was obsessed with it, and then later on they showed they did it
Oh my
briefly in one
God.
part, and then later on they showed a flashback, and it showed him all dressed as the character or something.
That's where 6 seasons
called
in a
back-
movie came from, actually.
Yeah.
It's
I hope
So
they do dark timeline stuff because I really like that.
that sounds like a really funny idea though. Like anything that actor does outside of Community can just pretend that that's Abed and he did it.
Yeah.
And that's perfect. That's
Yeah.
perfect for Community, because that's totally how Community functions. Is that
Right.
they would
Yeah.
totally claim, oh yeah, that was really Abed.
Right.
Community will take something that seems unrealistic and unusable, and then they just make it fit, and it fits in this way that's almost surreal. It's like magic realism, and it
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
it just
It's
works.
totally is magical realism. It's fantastic.
It's great. So yeah, I look forward to hearing about your impression on it. Yeah, at least try to watch up to the paintball episode, at least of the first
The
season.
paintball
Okay.
episode is the episode that converted me.
Really?
Yeah, because it kind of takes a little while to kind of find its legs. I liked it from the beginning.
I liked it from
But
the beginning, yeah.
for some people, it took them a while to kind of get into it. Almost universally, by the time the paintball episode hit, everybody was kind of on board. You know,
Alright.
that's kind of the point when everyone was like, okay, this is awesome.
Yeah.
But I liked it before that, but that's where I'd like to hear your impressions of. That's where I'd be interested in hearing your impressions after that point.
I'll watch at least up to the I'll watch as much as I can, at least up to the paintball episode, and then next week I'll give my noob impressions on Community.
Okay.
Yay!
Yay.
That'll be awesome.
So look forward to that.
All right, so that's great. So that wraps up the show. So thank you everybody for listening to the Weekly Set podcast. Everybody, say goodbye.
Bye.
If you would like to voice your opinion, send an email to theweeklyset@tventhusiast.com. TV Enthusiast is a part of the Enthusiast Media Network. Stay tuned to TV Enthusiast and the Weekly Set podcast for more coverage of all of your favorite shows. 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 Of all of your favorite